Hey, how you doing, guys? It's me again. Um, I wanted to make this video today to share something that has been sort of uh, definitely on my mind and on my heart, and it has to do with the difference between desire and lust, um, and why that's important, and how it kind of connects to the bigger picture of you know what's really going on, spiritually and with us humans at this time. And so desire, and I've made videos in the past about how it's important to work with desire, how to cultivate desire, um, to become a fuel, right? Because it desire is the fire, right, of the sun, you know, burning within your heart, that is going to allow you to move and progress forward on your journey, um, because you want to, right? That's the other thing about how it connects to the sort of the bigger, deeper picture is that why are you here? Why are you going through these experiences? Why are you having this, human journey? Because you want to, right? Because your spirit wanted to, you know, become a human, to incarnate as a man or as a woman or as a transgender person or whatever. You are here now in this physical world because you want to be, So your desire is important, like what your desire is, right? And that's where cultivation comes in. And because there's a difference, and when I said at the beginning, desire versus lust, right? Or desire versus want or need, right? Because desire is at your core, it's in your center, it's the fire again of your heart, right? And that is where the work is. That's where the attention is. That's where the energy starts to awaken. When you pay attention and do the work. Want or need or lust. We could really, we could dial this in the realm of sexuality, right? Because it's summer, and this is when the procreative forces and the lusts and the of the physical are at the forefront of everyone's consciousness. It's unavoidable. It really is. Like, humans are sexual animals. It's an unavoidable aspect of existence. So the idea of denying it or pushing it away and saying that is not an option anymore. That just doesn't work. It's a recipe for self-annihilation, rather than self-generation, right? However, there is a sort of danger or risk involved with lust, right? With just the want or the need for gratification, right? Rather than integration, right? There's a difference, because one, gratification, it will lead you away from your truth. It will lead you away from your deeper self, from your spiritual being, and you'll go back into the dog eat dog world, the carnal mind, and the viciousness and the lies and all that. If you're engaging with this creative energy, which sexual energy is the most powerful creative energy in the human world, if you're engaging with it in an improper or immoral, unethical, unguided way, you're going to be lost in lust. Lust, lost. There's a reason they're very similar words. There's no accidents, there's no coincidences here. You know? So, but again, there's no denying that. There's no denying that want. There's no denying that need. There's no denying that the fact that it's pleasurable, right? That sex in the physical realm, it's the most like enjoyable thing you can do, you know, in the physical, right? So how do you find the balance point where it's not going to ruin your progress or pull you away from the work, pull you away from the inner sanctity of your being, right? And instead let it guide you, right? And that's the difference between desire and lust, is that desire wants you to come back within, to work on yourself, to work on your being, you know, in your heart, in your soul, in your mind, you know. That way, those creative energies that are moving through you will have a stronger, more stable foundation for which you can build upon, you know. You can build yourself back up, right? But the lust, you know, and the external desires and the gratifications and the needs and the instant, you know, beep bop boop boop, oh, you know, it just it won't, it'll lead you back to square one, back to, you know, because a lot of it is distraction. You know, we're using people and other humans in as forms of distraction, you know, from doing our own inner work, for paying attention to our own selves, you know. Which again, that's a recipe for disaster. You know, the need for validation gets you stuck in bad relation, where you're stuck in this chaos and in this confusion, and you can't pay attention and do the inner work that your inner child, or, you know, that your spirit wants you to do, you know, because you're allowing yourself to be distracted by someone else, you know, or something else, you know. It's really like in all the, you know, the armories of the world, the sharpest double-edged sword, the sharpest double-edged sword that was ever designed is sexual attraction, you know, and love, passion, and lust. It's the sharpest double-edged sword, because on one hand, it's super attractive, and it seems to have everything, you know, like, oh, she's everything I want, he's everything I want. But on the other hand, you have to be everything you want, right? You can't rely on anyone else, you know. You know, you've got to become the best version of yourself. You got to become you. And no one else is going to give that to you, right? But this whole thing is, this whole, you know, dating and relationships and all that is built around the idea that someone else is, you know, out there for you, you know. And it's just like, go ahead, you know, try, you know. There's nothing wrong with putting yourself out there, right? But after you've done that enough, you was like, I'd rather put myself back inside. Like, I'd rather put myself in here, you know, because this whole thing is just shaking me. Like, like, where's my foundation? Like, I'm being pulled apart. I'm being, like, by all these desires in my mind, and I'm just like, I just want to go back, and that is what the spiritual path or desire is about. Is about, like, go in, don't go out. And everybody's going out. You want to go out with me? You know what a spiritual person does? You know how they ask someone, you want to go in with me? Like, but ultimately you have to do it yourself first, right? But, again, there's no denying the attractiveness and the pull of that energy, But the reason it's dangerous is because it is a pull, because it does pull you down, It can pull you down, Whereas there's this other thing, right, that desire that builds you up, that brings you up, And at that point, in that place, you remember that you're good enough by yourself. That there's this whole thing telling you, you need someone else, and that you'll never be happy until you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend and lots of money and these nice clothes, and that you need to be attractive and all this, and we're inundated and surrounded by it all the time. But if you just give yourself a little space from all that and start doing the inner work, and focus on you and your emotions and your energy and your creativity, then you remember you are enough. And then, going back to the double-edged sword, then you become more attractive, It's just true. It's just how it works. You become more attractive to people because you have something that they want, right? Because it's all about desire. Again, desire is the fire. It is the fuel. But it's not a physical thing that you have, right? Because on some subconscious level, the human DNA or the human spirit, there's something that it wants, like its deepest or highest need of the spirit, not of the carnal mind or the flesh, but of the spirit. And it's peace, man. It's peace. It's wisdom. It's knowingness, clarity, certainty, right? Everybody wants that, right? And when you want that more than you want, a validation hit, or like, a big set of boobies in your face, or, a big cock or whatever, when you want that more than you want anything external, that becomes the desire that fuels the healthy fire of the sun, not the destructive fire of this world, right? And again, there's been a lot of argument and a lot of debate about the things that have been written in the New Testament by the Apostle Paul, because it's all about morality, and it's all about, the wickedness of the flesh, and but he got a few things, he got something, he was on to something, is what I'm saying, right? It's not about demonizing anybody's free will and their desire to, people can do whatever they want. Again, everyone has free will. That's grace, that's acceptance. You have no control over other people's actions. So there's no point having, and this is why these institutions upset people, because they cast moral judgment on others, whereas everyone, through the grace of God, is given the gift of moving and going through life without the fear of judgment. No one wants to be judged, condemned, or, right? No one should. That's not the way. But when you reflect on your own experience and your growth and your progress in the challenges or whatever that you faced on your journey, or on my journey personally, I realized that, there is this whole invitation for self-destruction, for self-annihilation, self-forgettingment, self-abandonment, and our culture and our world has become sickened by it, whereas through grace, and prayer, meditation and reflection and solitude, meaning alone with myself, good enough as I am, I've realized that that's the love that I'm looking for. Self-love, love of my true, authentic, spiritual self, rather than desire or longing or lust for someone or something outside of me, which was just a distraction from my own condition and my own misery. And the more and more I pursued it, the more and more I allowed myself to be pulled by it, the deeper into the hole I fell. Right? But again, this is why we say, in Christ we overcome, because when I came back home to myself, I started to dig myself out of the hole, and realized that it's better above ground, I don't want these subterranean homesick blues, I'd rather, walk down the highway, with my brother in peace, to, bring it back to the greatest lyricist of all time, Bob Dylan. But I hope this message is making sense, and is relevant and resonant at a time when people are really figuring it out, right? And the important thing is to give yourself the free will to make mistakes and to maybe, end up in a disastrous situationship or a toxic relationship, but not to get stuck in it, right? To learn the lesson and then go back home to yourself and then have another piece of experience which leads to more wisdom. The more experience you have, the more wisdom you have, But there is cause for concern. There is cause for having a sense of a morality or a moral compass or an ethical compass, that other people are not objects, are not toys to be played with in a manipulation game, and a lot of the way we interact with one another in the world, especially in dating, is born of that. It's a game, right? In truth, bro, this life is not a game. I mean, it is, but not in the sense that you can play other people, It's in the sense that you have to defeat the boss, the bad guy, which, to go back to our last video, it was judgment, fear and doubt, uncertainty, guilt, shame. Defeat that boss. Walk in confidence, walk in peace, walk in the Spirit, which means you don't get pulled about by these needless wants. But that's my opinion, right? That's just my opinion based on my experience and where I'm at now, you know. But again, it's not denying desire. It's not denying the desire for love and romance and passion. It's not denying it. It can happen. It can exist. It can be good. It can be healthy, you know. But the time and the place and the person, you know, it has to be right first, you know, balanced first, you know, because I should end here, we're at 20 minutes, but go back to attraction, right? Like when you're imbalanced, right, you will attract that to you to show you where you're imbalanced, basically. Like, you know, if you're too into your passivity, femininity, then you will attract someone who is more masculine and more demanding and more, you know, assertive, you know, to you, you know. And that's a recipe for toxicity, you know. But if you're balanced within, you know, and you know what you're getting into, you know, then you're better off, you know, than going in blind. So don't be blinded by the light or the lux, you know, because it's inside you. You know, it's not out here. You won't find it. So, thank you, my friends. Hope you have a beautiful, blessed rest of your day. I hope something good happens to you. And stay tuned. There will be much more philosophy happening. Love you.